Hello and welcome to another episode of Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie and I'm your host for today's show. Now, there's no Premier League football this week, but that doesn't stop us from talking football. So let's talk about the international scene. England announced their pre-World Cup squad last week as they take on Italy on Friday and Germany on Monday as part of the Nations League fixtures. But I think there were quite a few surprises with regard. So I thought it's only right that I analyze the squad myself and give some thoughts on the selection. But before we start speaking about the squad, there was one quote that I saw earlier on Sky Sports where when I think Gareth Southgate first became the manager of England, he said that he's going to select players that are playing regularly for their clubs and that are playing well for their clubs. So at the time, it probably didn't seem like a big deal. But when I heard that quote from him, it's a big statement. And for some people, it was a bit of a refreshing viewpoint from a new coach at the time. But he made those comments. I knew that in some shape or form, it will come back to bite him in the future, as that's not how football works. Eventually, you select the players based on their reputation and how they performed for you whenever you selected them for your team. So let's get into the 28-man squad, and I'll identify players that I believe were selected on merit or selected based on their reputation. So I think the goalkeepers are pretty straightforward in terms of the selection. So you've got Henderson, you've got Nick Pope, and you've got Ramsdale. Unfortunately, I think Pickford is out with an injury. Not sure if it's a long-term one or a short-term, but he's not available for these fixtures. So in regards to the goalkeeping department, no huge surprises, I would say. And then you've got the defenders. So you've got Trent, Chilwell, Cody, Eric Dyer, who returns to the squad, Gay from Crystal Palace, Reece James, Maguire, Luke Shaw, Stones, Tomori, Trippier, and Walker. Long list of defenders. I'll go into more detail after I've completed the squad here. So midfield was Bellingham, Mount. Originally was Calvin Phillips, but I think he's suffered a shoulder injury. So Henderson, to my surprise, takes his place in the squad. So another talking point there. And then you've got Declan Rice and you've got Ward-Prowse. And in attack, you've got Abraham, Bowen, Foden, Grealish, Kane, Saka, Sterling, and a newcomer in Ivan Toney. So as I mentioned about the goalkeeper, so let's go through each department. The goalkeeping department, nothing really more to add in terms of that selection. I think the keepers pretty much choose for themselves, as there's not a wealth of English goalkeepers out there to choose from. Pickford is clearly Southgate's number one. Me personally, I'm not his biggest fan. I know he does well whenever he plays for England, and I'm not speaking because I'm a Liverpool fan and he plays for Everton. I think his performances can be a bit shaky. I think he is a bit of a live wire where I think he comes out of the box erratically at times. Shot stopping skills are questionable as well at the same time. If I was manager, I'd probably go for a different keeper. I'd probably go for Ramsdale. Now, you might be thinking he kind of shares similar traits to Pickford in terms of having an error here and there, but he's a young goalkeeper. In general, I think he's a better all-round goalkeeper. I think he's a better shot stopper than Pickford, and he's definitely better with his feet. So I think he should be given a chance, especially with Pickford not available, to play these next two fixtures against Italy and Germany to showcase his talent. And who knows, maybe stake a claim to start as the number one in the World Cup. So obviously he will have that opportunity. I think it's himself and Pope would probably rotate in terms of playing a game each. So we'll see how they do. Now, defenders. This is the big talking point where, firstly, Gareth Southgate selected 12 defenders now. I get he's a former defender and all that, but he's having a laugh. that is just a ridiculous amount of defenders to have in your squad. Automatically, if you were a rival in the World Cup, you can tell this manager is a cautious manager. Why on earth would you have so many defenders? Even teams that aren't blessed with a lot of tackers, they wouldn't have 12 defenders in their squad. England have such a wealth of great technical players. It should be filled with midfielders and attackers, in my opinion. And let's look at the squad. He loves the right back, doesn't he? He selected 4. I know Trippier would be utilized as a left back, but for me, there's far too many fullbacks in this squad. Also, looking at this number of defenders selected, you would assume that he would play 3-4-3 formation, maybe a 3-5-2. But I think based on the recent games that England played over the last few months, he was pretty much deploying a 4-2-3-1. So, which personally I think is a perfect formation for the couple of players that they have. But I think the big talking point in terms of his selection is the inclusion of Maguire and Luke Shaw. So 2 Man United players there. 2 players that aren't starters this season. So you'd question, why has he selected these 2 players? They're not on form. They hardly play. So they really shouldn't be in the squad based on Southgate's original quote saying that he only selects players based on form. I think for him, because they had a good Euros last year, especially Luke Shaw, everyone started calling him Roberto Carlos, which was a bit of a joke, but, it is what it is. And Maguire had a decent competition as well. So he knows he can rely on these 2 players. Maguire, for me, isn't elite level, in my opinion. Luke Shaw hardly stays fit. So you're thinking, can you rely on a player like that? Wouldn't it be better to have a different option or a younger option in the squad where you can utilize different players in different times? So for me, bizarre selection, because I know he selected a squad for Italy and Germany, but it's a pre-World Cup selection, so it's an indication of the players that he might possibly select for the World Cup. And we're not too far away. We're, I'll say, 6 weeks away from the World Cup. Maybe, I think 2 months. Let's just say 2 months. So obviously a lot of football to play. Hopefully players can stay fit, but these 2 players can't even get into their own team. So that's another one. I think there's 2 players that their selection wasn't justified. Well, I should say that they weren't picked and it's unfair for them, is Ben White for Arsenal. And I have to say Joe Gomez. Now, Joe Gomez, you're like, oh, Liverpool fan, you got to stick up for your players. I think he's had a good few games for Liverpool. He's been in the team a bit more. So based on form, he's done well. He had one off day against Napoli. So before you start sending me comments, like, what about the Napoli game? Yes, he didn't have a great game, but, he did well. And Ben White, for me, has played fantastically this season. He's played every game for Arsenal, and he's even playing in right back, which is a bit more of an unfamiliar role for him. So wouldn't he be a great option where if you wanted the back 3, he can play on the right-hand side. If you wanted the back 4, he can play right back, or he can play in the centre-back position as well. So for me, he would be a perfect addition to the squad. So bizarre in terms of what Southgate has done there. And for me, one sort of outside the box selection that I feel like he maybe should have gone for was Crystal Palace's left back, Tyrone Mitchell. So I think he deserved the call up. He may not be in great form right now. I'm sure Palace fans will tell me, as his position in the team is in question right now. But England aren't blessed with left backs who are naturally left-footed. So I think this would have been a great time to test the waters, assess him, and see if he's at the right quality to play at this level. So there's only one way to find out, and that's to actually give the person a chance. So yeah, that's an interesting one regarding the defenders. Midfielders, he selected 5 midfielders in Bellingham, Rice, Phillips, who's now been replaced by Henderson, and you've got Ward-Prowse as well. So let's talk about Henderson. Huge surprise to say the least. And I'm speaking as a Liverpool fan. I personally wasn't pleased to hear the news about that. He's been injured for a number of weeks. Just because he's made a speedy recovery earlier than scheduled, that doesn't mean he's worthy or he should be called up for international duty where he's not fully fit. He's definitely not match fit. So personally, I'm surprised that Liverpool didn't intervene and block it from happening, but maybe that's another discussion for another day. Back to the midfield. I mentioned that I believe England will be playing a 4-2-3-1 formation. So you've got the number 10 role. So the 5 midfielders that I mentioned, they're more for the number 6/8, probably number 6, I would say, playing more on the defensive side. Then you've got your number 10. So I think the first choice for Southgate would be Mount, which is fair enough. And then you've got Jack Grealish. For me, that's his role. I don't see him being effective on the left-hand side. So I see him more as a number 10. And there's been a lot of shouts in terms of why James Maddison hasn't been included in the squad and why isn't he getting his opportunity. I'll be honest, I have no idea why he hasn't been selected in the past. Because you get some players where maybe they're not at the right level to compete, but he's never been given a chance. So if, let's say, Grealish or Mount were to be injured, who would Southgate bring in? The indication would be that it doesn't look like he would bring in James Maddison because he's never selected him in the past. So, and looking at those two players, I think Maddison would be the right profile to bring in. He can play the number 10, does it for Leicester, does a fantastic job in that role, can play on the left side if required as well. So, yeah, for me, definitely should be in consideration or at least in the provisional squad, but he hasn't even had a shoe in yet. So, what more does he have to do? Manager just clearly doesn't like him or think he's the right fit for his squad. So be it. That is the coach's decision there. In terms of attack, great moment for Ivan Toney to be selected for the first time, and for me, thoroughly deserved. If you watched my previous episodes, especially from last season, you would have noticed I'm a big fan of Toney. I think he's so underrated. He's an unbelievable finisher, obviously great at penalties, but there's more to his game. He links up fantastically, and I think his ability on the ball is second to none. Does great 1-2 slick passes around the pitch. You can see the partnership that he's formed in Brentford with Mbeumo as well. So you know he can play alongside a striker, and his link-up play, you know, he likes to attack through the channels and give through balls to his other teammates. So for me, he's an all-rounded forward, and a forward that will definitely flourish in this team. It's got a comment here from Ravi, who says, yo, thank you, Ravi, for tuning in. In terms of the attack for this England squad, there's no huge surprises for me, other than the two players that haven't been added is Rashford and Sancho. So Rashford, I believe, has a slight knock, so that's why he wasn't included. But you'd assume, based on that, he might still have a chance. But Sancho wasn't given any sort of feedback in terms of why his position wasn't in the squad. And I was quite surprised with it because in the past, he's been selected by Southgate. So when he was selected, he wasn't playing in great form for United. But this season under Ten Hag, he's been fantastic. He's been in great form. So why hasn't he been selected this time around? Really bizarre. And for me, one of the players that shouldn't be there is Gerard Bowen. Now, look, I like Bowen highly. He's been awful this season, and that goes with his team as well. I don't think they've been showing their true self. They've been a shadow of the team that was performing fantastically last season. So, based on Southgate's original statement about selecting players on form and not reputation or preference, it's pretty much gone out the window because it's quite clear that that's not the philosophy he's going by with this selection. And I'm sure going forward in terms of the final squad, it might be similar to what we're seeing right now. So just got a couple comments here from Ravi. Can England play more aggression? They can, but it comes from the manager. Does he want the team to play in that manner? And unfortunately, he's not that type of manager, and it's been proven in the past. Very cautious in his setup. Loves to play the three at the back, 4 or 5 in midfield, and depending on the formation, 3 or 2 up top. For me, with the current crop of players, that doesn't suit the system. You've got great talent that play with freedom. So you've got players like Grealish, who should be playing as a number 10, where he's playing more centrally and can play in the pockets rather than being shifted out wide and left, where for me, he's not effective at all. And then you've got Southgate selecting every right back available in the league. So, yeah, I think if you have that kind of state of mind, it's not showing that you're an attack-minded manager. And that's, for me, a weakness. I think it's a negative approach going into a World Cup where if you look at the names, you're thinking they have a great squad. But with his tactics, they're not as great as they should be. So, yeah, it is what it is. Your second comment, Trent, as much as I rate him, he's going to get cooked defensively. Yeah, I wouldn't start him. I think he deserves to be in the squad, but I wouldn't start him. I think Walker pretty much is a shoe-in at right back. Obviously, because he's an experienced player. He's still pretty much playing at the top level. I think the partnership he has with Foden from club level is very helpful in terms of having that balance on the right-hand side. So yeah. So with Trent, I don't see him starting as much, but who knows? It's a long tournament. The players will be rotated, so he will definitely take part in some shape or form. Was it right not to pick Sancho? I don't think it was right. I think he should have picked Sancho. He picked Bowen ahead of him, and for me, that's Bowen has been awful this season, and Sancho has actually done really well so far. So he looks a different player. He looks like he's full of confidence. So that should have been taken account with the selection here. And he just said fossil football. Yeah, that's the way England play, and it's a shame because we've actually got a lot of talent here. So it should be a thing where the football is tailored to the talent you have in your squad. You know, we're blessed with a lot of midfielders, a lot of attackers, and you should be utilized. So yeah, it is what it is. But at this stage, we can't, we'll see how the games are against Italy and Germany, see how the team set up. Might be an indication of how we play in the World Cup. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. A lot of players missing, so ahead. Conor Gallagher would have been someone that may have been considered, even though he hasn't played that many games for Chelsea this season. I think he's been selected for under 21, so which is probably the right move for him. I think at this stage of his international career, gets used to playing that international level a little bit more, and I think in due time he'll be ready-made for the first team squad. Tyrone Mings for me has been woeful, and Gerard has said it out loud as well, so obviously doesn't deserve a mention. But because Southgate is a fan of him and has selected him so many times in the past, it would have been hellfire if he was selected in this squad, but he isn't. So, and I think rightly so. Smith Rowe for me, a great talent, can play centre mid, can play as a 10 or on the left, but for me, he hasn't played enough games for Arsenal to stake a claim in this England squad. You've got Ollie Watkins as well, who's normally regularly selected in the squads. I think Ivan Toney's been fantastic and deserves his position in the squad. James Justin as well, Leicester City fullback. I know Leicester City will be woeful as well, so that's probably why he hasn't been in contention to be selected. But I think going forward, he'd be quite a useful player as he plays on the left-hand side. So that is another left back option, even though he's right-footed. one sort of outside of the box, I have to do one of these outside the box predictions. I think maybe should have been considered is Eze from Crystal Palace. I think he's had a great start to the season, so maybe a player with a different sort of ilk where plays centre mid, but really good with his dribbling, drives the ball forward. I think he would have just given England midfield something different, but maybe in the long term he'll have a chance to stake a claim. But yeah, so that wraps us for today. So thank you for tuning in, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As international, what I'll do is I'll do another show next Tuesday at 11 p.m. UK time, where I will pretty much review the two games. So England are playing Italy on Friday, and then they'll be playing Germany on Monday. So I'll do a match review on Tuesday evening, give you my thoughts. And then next Thursday, I will do the Premier League preview as always. So lots of content coming up for you guys. So hopefully you'll tune in and enjoy the show. Like always, guys, take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you all soon. Good night.